Hello, I'm Hushjo. Welcome to Let's H. Scroll down and click on the Read More, explore some of the links in the blurb, and become a patron on Patreon to support more quality content. Today, we have a review for a film. I'm taking a little break from the Angel reviews, but don't worry, those will be back next time. This time the review is for a film called Book of Blood, also known as Clive Barker's Book of Blood. To let you know some of my history with Clive Barker, I actually absolutely loathed the first Hellraiser when I saw it. I thought it was boring, not much going on, and not very good acting. I have since rewatched it and found it much better in the second watching. However, I still prefer later films in the series. I don't really think that the first film was really where they were going for in it. It was neat for its time, but overall it wasn't that good to me. I do like Clive Barker's ability to try and combine the horrific and the erotic. That is kind of neat to me. However, it doesn't always work. And this is one of those situations where it really doesn't work. Book of Blood should really be called Book of Bored. The thing is, it's over an hour and a half long. It's an hour and 40 minutes long. I cannot imagine why they thought they needed to make a film this long. And it complicates itself. It has this framing story that's taking place, we later find out, after the story that's the main content of the movie. But the way they present it initially, it makes it seem more like it's going to be setting up for an anthology, which it would have worked a lot better as. The framing story is so problematic, though, it doesn't really set up anything very well. It just makes you wonder about how problematic it is in a world where this could happen. If we're supposed to believe in what's happening in the story that the guy tells, which makes up most of the film, the rest of it doesn't actually make that much sense. It seems to hint at a larger and deeper world than this film is really prepared to introduce to us. And really one of the worst parts about it is that it's taking what is essentially a very limited short story and expanding it into feature film length. It does not have nearly enough content to make this length. There's so much that has to be expanded and inflated and drawn out and stretched out, and it's so hard to follow. There are some genuinely evocative images in here, and there's some stuff that is kind of scary or kind of creepy or weird or mildly erotic or whatever, but most of the time it just ends up being awkward and making you think, where is this going? What is this contributing to the actual plot? Does this make any sense? Most of the answers are, it doesn't contribute anything, and no, it doesn't make sense. Also, this movie is really grey. No matter what you see in it, it's grey. The promo poster for this film has more colour in it than this film has for almost 2 hours running time. Things happen in this film, grey and all, for no real reason. You can figure out what's going on fairly quickly, but for some reason the characters in it don't. For some reason they can't clue in to what's going on. It doesn't really reflect poorly on their acting abilities. Pretty much everybody delivers a fairly solid performance and is directed well. It's just that the script is so bad that they can't do anything with nothing. And apparently they thought that they had to restate the fairly simple, straightforward premise time and time again, sometimes 2 or 3 times in rapid succession. Like I remember one period where it was maybe 10 or 15 minutes where they restated the premise of the film no less than 3 times. Yes, we know there are parts of the world where the dead and the living come together. It's a cool premise, but there's just not enough story here to deal with it as it should be dealt with. This is definitely short story material. If you want to make a larger film about this, it's going to have to be a bit more than what it gives us here. And I love small cast, limited set films. I love them. It's one of the reasons I liked Night Gallery so much when it was on, because you would have these stories and they would have just a small, good, dense cast of just a couple of people with just a couple of sets. Sometimes just one set, sometimes just one person. I am all about those. But this one brings in so much shit that it doesn't even know what it's shoveling after a point. Is it trying to ape Hellraiser, or is it trying to ape The Pillow Book? It fails at both, and it's not very interesting either way. Yeah, it does play with sexuality and nudity, but it doesn't do enough in it. It's boring, it's unexceptional, and most of their dealing with it is extremely awkward, puerile, and just seems giggle-worthy. And not because it's funny, but because it's so awkward that only someone who's never actually had real human interaction could think that it sounds realistic or compelling in any way. Things pop out of nowhere and swiftly go right back there, just kind of like the plot of this film. There's no resolution to anything. No stories are actually told. There are things hinted at. There are things kind of built up, but nothing actually ends up being much of anything. I can't even call this a wet fart resolution like I do in some of my other reviews. That would imply that there was some build-up. Here, there's not much of a build-up of what happens. Things just sort of happen and then the script moves. But it doesn't move in interesting ways. And it's so boring that even the nudity, even the sex scenes, even all of these things that are engineered to keep an audience awake and paying attention cannot save it. In fact, they're fairly boring themselves. The sex scenes last far too long and they're extremely awkward. The people in them have no chemistry, and it's clear that they're kind of uncomfortable. They're kind of exactly the opposite of erotic and sensual. In fact, they bog the film down. This film might have been like an hour and a half instead of an hour and 40 minutes. Don't pad out a film that you're already padding. Overall, it was just a mess. Not even a hot mess. While it was well directed, the photography was not well directed. There may be some pretty shots, but everything is so grey in this that it's boring too. It only could have been more boring if it had been beige. So what do you say with a film that's supposedly based off of Clive Barker's writing, but it's only dull, unappealing, unerotic, and unevocative? I say give it a miss. Don't make the mistake of doing what I did and watching Book of Blood thinking, this'll be a sexy, extreme, weird trip into Clive Barker's subconscious. Because as much as some of his adaptations have tanked, I think this must have definitely been one of them that didn't peek far enough into his subconscious. It can't be that grey. I'll see you next time for another episode. Remember to become a patron on Patreon to support more quality content. Thanks again. Bye.